One of the things we say here at Global Surge is from the street to the world. What do we mean by that? Well, we simply mean that we want to reach people right off the streets of the urban centers around the world. We want to disciple them, we want to equip them, and then we want to launch them in ministry around the world. We have always had our eyes beyond the borders of the country that we were founded in, the Philippines. I believe and have believed for many years the Philippines is a launching pad for the next wave of missionaries. In fact, we would say right now that that wave is already going and that we are launching people on a regular basis to plant new churches, to cross borders, to take the gospel to places that have never heard or have yet to be reached. We have focused on unreached people groups throughout Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and other parts of the world. And God has given us a vision to do that. We do this through what we call the ministry pipeline, where we view everybody in the lost world as somebody who needs to hear about Jesus Christ. And once we tell them about Jesus, once they embrace salvation and become born again, we want them to be baptized as the Bible teaches us. We want them to be discipled, to learn all things that God that has taught us and that is written in the Bible. But in addition to that, we want them to come and reproduce, to not simply take the gospel in themselves, receive the gospel in themselves, and then be able to bring it forth to other people. And thus the ministry pipeline was birthed to reach people with the gospel, to renew them through discipleship, raise them as leaders, and release them into ministry. There are many components that are part of this. Our small group ministry is an integral part in the development of the body life of the Christians in our church. It is also important for leadership development to be embedded throughout this entire ministry pipeline of which we have done. We call it the leadership continuum. It is an intentional approach to telling people right from the beginning and helping them see their value as a leader and challenge them to stretch, to grow, to ultimately step out by faith and be a leader in a ministry that God would open up for them. We've seen this happen so many times. One story that always grips me is the story of J.B. Sidol, a young man who grew up on the streets of Manila. And in fact, he lived a pretty interesting life. He was a street thief on the streets of Manila. Not a good guy. He was trying to make his way. He came from a broken family. He came from a family of conflict. And while he was there doing his normal routine of trying to find somebody to steal from, he found a flyer given to him by one of our leaders and inviting him to our evangelistic camp. He thought, wow, I've never been to anything like this. So he decided to sign up, and he got on the bus and he went to camp and he heard the gospel for the first time, but he didn't pay much attention to it. And he actually stole some cell phones while he was at camp. I remember the day when I was being called by the leaders of the camp saying, hey, there's some kids that have lost their cell phone and we've got to go talk to their parents. That was not a happy day for me. We didn't know who did it. Well, it happened that a couple of months later, we were having another evangelistic camp and JB got another flyer and he decided to go back for round 2. And when he went back, he sat in the back and he was looking over the crowd, no doubt thinking in his mind who he could take advantage of. While he sat there, he decided to listen just for a moment to the preacher. And when the message came forth, the Holy Spirit began to speak to JB. By JB's own testimony, he said at the end of the service, I couldn't take my eyes off the speaker. And when the invitation was given, he said, I found myself walking to the front. JB got saved. He was just off the streets, had never encountered Jesus in this way before, but there was a radical change in his life at that moment. JB began to be discipled. He began to serve in one of our ministries. He began to be mentored by other leaders. He eventually graduated from Global Life University with a biblical studies degree. And today, JB is serving as an international evangelist all throughout Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, from the street to the world. That's exactly what happened to JB. God had a plan for his life, and he used Global Surge and our ministry pipeline to fulfill that calling.